There comes a moment in every life when the greatest battle is not fought in the world outside, but deep within the quiet chambers of the mind, a place where doubt whispers louder than truth, where fear tries to disguise itself as reason, and where negative thoughts slowly attempt to steal the strength that was placed inside you for a purpose. You may have felt it, that weight pressing on your spirit, telling you that you are not enough, that you cannot rise, that your best days are behind you. But there is something greater within you that refuses to agree with that voice. You were not created to live bound by fear or imprisoned by your own thinking. There is a power in you that was meant to rise above every doubt, a strength that was designed to break every chain of negativity. The struggle you feel is real, but so is the victory waiting on the other side of it. The question is not whether doubt will come, but whether you allow it to define you or refine you. This is where the turning point begins. Not in the changing of circumstances, but in the renewing of your mind. Because when you begin to challenge the lies, when you begin to stand firm against the storm of negative thinking, something shifts. Light begins to break through the darkness, and hope starts to take its rightful place again. And in that moment, you realize that the voice you choose to listen to will determine the life you choose to live. There is a voice inside you that has been talking for a long time, a voice that shows up when you are about to take a risk, when you are about to grow, when you are standing at the edge of something greater than the life you have been living. That voice does not shout at first. It whispers, subtle and persistent, telling you to slow down, to stay where you are, to doubt your ability, to question your worth. Over time, if you keep listening, that whisper becomes a command, and that command becomes a limitation that shapes how you see yourself and how you move through the world. But here is the truth you need to hold on to with everything you have. That voice is not you. It may sound like you, it may carry your tone, your memories, your fears, but it is not the truth of who you are. It is a collection of past experiences, failures, opinions, and moments where you were made to feel small. It learned from those moments, and now it repeats them as if they define your future. And if you do not challenge it, it will keep you standing still while life moves forward. Without you silencing that inner critic does not mean you will never hear it again. It means you stop giving it authority. You stop treating it like the final word and start recognizing it as just noise that has been playing on repeat. You begin to separate your identity from your thoughts. Just because you think something does not make it real. Just because a doubt enters your mind does not mean it deserves a seat at your table. You have the power to decide which thoughts stay and which ones go. Reclaiming control of your mind starts with awareness. You have to catch that voice in the act. You have to hear it when it says you are not ready, when it says you will fail, when it says you are not capable. And instead of accepting it, you pause and challenge it. You ask yourself, where did that come from? Who told me that? And more importantly, is it true? Most of the time, you will find that it is not based on your current reality, but on a past version of yourself that no longer exists. Then comes the work of replacing that voice with something stronger. Not empty positivity, but grounded truth. You remind yourself of what you have overcome, of the strength you have already shown, of the times you kept going when it would have been easier to quit. You build a new narrative, one that reflects who you are becoming, not who you used to be. This is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about refusing to let negativity have the final say in your life. Discipline plays a role here that cannot be ignored. Motivation might get you started, but discipline is what keeps you steady when that inner critic tries to come back louder than before. You train your mind the same way you would train your body, through repetition, through consistency, through showing up even when it is uncomfortable. Every time you act in spite of doubt, you weaken its grip. Every time you choose courage over fear, you take back a piece of control that once belonged to that voice. There will be days when the critic feels stronger than your confidence. Days when it feels easier to listen than to fight back. But those are the days that matter the most. Because in those moments, you are not just building success, you are building resilience. You are teaching yourself that your mind does not control you. You control your mind. And that lesson, once learned, becomes a foundation that nothing can easily shake. You also have to be mindful of what you feed your mind. The environment you surround yourself with, The conversations you engage in, the content you consume, all of it shapes the volume and tone of that inner voice. If you constantly expose yourself to negativity, comparison, and doubt, your inner critic will have more material to work with. But if you choose growth, positivity, and purpose, you begin to strengthen the voice that pushes you forward instead of holding you back. Reclaiming control is not a one-time decision, it is a daily commitment. It is waking up and choosing to think differently, choosing to act differently, choosing to believe in something greater than your fear. It is understanding that your mind is a powerful tool, but only if you take responsibility for how it is used. You are not here to be controlled by doubt. You are here to rise above it, to master it, to turn it into something that fuels your progress instead of stopping it. And when you stay with that process long enough, something begins to shift. The voice that once held you back starts to lose its power. It becomes quieter, less convincing, less frequent, and in its place, a new voice begins to grow. A voice that speaks with confidence, with clarity, with purpose. A voice that reminds you of who you are and what you are capable of becoming. That is the moment you realize that the battle was never about eliminating doubt completely. It was about refusing to let it lead your life and choosing instead to step forward with strength, with belief, and with control over your own mind. There are stories you have been telling yourself for years. Quiet narratives that run in the background of your life, shaping the way, see yourself, the way you respond to challenges, and the way you measure your worth. These stories did not appear overnight. They were built piece by piece through moments of failure, rejection, disappointment, and even the careless words of others. Somewhere along the way, those moments stopped being experiences and started becoming definitions. You began to believe that what happened to you is who you are. One lie says you are not good enough, that no matter how hard you try, you will always fall short. Another lie tells you that it is too late, that you have missed your opportunity, and there is no point in trying again. Then there is the lie that whispers you are not like them, that success is reserved for other people, people with more talent, more luck, more support, and the most dangerous one of all is the lie that tells you to stay comfortable, to stay where you are because at least it feels safe. But here is what you need to understand with absolute clarity. Those lies have survived because you have been repeating them, not out of weakness, but out of habit. The mind learns what it hears the most, and if you keep feeding it doubt, it will produce more doubt. If you keep feeding it fear, it will build a life around fear. Breaking free begins the moment you recognize that just because a thought feels familiar does not make it true. You have to confront those lies head on, not by ignoring them, not by pretending they do not exist, but by challenging them with truth. When that voice tells you that you are not capable, you answer it with evidence from your own life. You remind yourself of the times you pushed through difficulty, the times you showed strength when you thought you had none left. You begin to build a case for yourself, not based on what you fear, but based on what you have already proven. This process is not comfortable. It requires you to question beliefs you have held for a long time. It requires you to step outside of the identity you have grown used to, even if that identity has been limiting you. There is a strange comfort in familiar pain, in familiar doubt, because at least you know what to expect. But growth demands that you leave that behind and step into uncertainty. With a different mindset, breaking free also means taking responsibility for your direction. It means no longer blaming your past, your circumstances, or the opinions of others for where you are in your life. That does not mean those things did not affect you. It means they do not get to control your future. You reach a point where you decide that your story is still being written, and you are the one holding the pen. Action becomes your strongest weapon in this fight, because every time you act in a way that contradicts those old lies, you weaken them. If the lie says you cannot do it, and you take a step forward anyway, you create a crack in that belief. If the lie says you will fail, and you keep going despite the fear, you start building a new truth. Change does not happen through thinking alone. It happens through consistent action that proves your thoughts wrong. You also have to be patient with yourself. These lies were not built in a day, and they will not disappear in a day. There will be moments when they come back, when they sound convincing again, when you feel pulled toward the old way of thinking. But the difference now is awareness. You recognize them for what they are, and you refuse to let them settle in your mind the way they used to. The environment around you plays a role as well. If you surround yourself with negativity, with people who reinforce those limiting beliefs, it becomes harder to break free. But when you begin to align yourself with growth, with people and ideas that challenge you to rise higher, you create space for new beliefs to take root. You start to see what is possible instead of what is comfortable. There is a version of you that exists beyond those lies, a version that is not held back by doubt or fear, a version that moves with confidence and purpose. That version is not something you have to create from nothing. It is already there, waiting for you to stop holding it down with the weight of false beliefs. Every step you take away from those lies is a step closer to that version of yourself. And as you continue this journey, you begin to notice a shift in the way you carry yourself. You start to trust your decisions more. You start to take risks you would have avoided before. You start to speak to yourself with a level of respect and belief that once felt unfamiliar. That is how you know you are breaking free, not because the lies have completely vanished, but because they no longer have the power to define your actions. This is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming aware, becoming intentional, and becoming stronger in the way you think and the way you live. It is about understanding that your mind can either be your greatest obstacle or your greatest ally, and that choice belongs to you every single day. So you keep moving forward. You keep challenging those old patterns, and you keep choosing truth over comfort. Because the moment you stop believing the lies is the moment you start stepping into the life that was waiting for you all along. Fear and doubt show up uninvited, right when you are standing at the edge of something that matters. They do not knock, they do not ask permission, they step into your mind and start painting pictures of everything that could go wrong. They make your heart race, your hands hesitate, your vision shrink, and if you are not careful, they will convince you to step back into comfort, to choose safety over growth, to settle for less than what you are capable of becoming. But there is another way to look at it, a way that changes everything. Fear is not always a warning to stop. Sometimes it is a signal that you are stepping into something important. Doubt is not always your enemy. Sometimes it is a test of how badly you want to move forward. The same energy that holds you back can be redirected, reshaped, and used to push you ahead if you learn how to control it, instead of letting it control you. You have to understand that growth never lives in the comfortable places. It lives in the moments where you feel stretched, where you feel uncertain, where you are forced to confront parts of yourself you would rather avoid. Fear and doubt are natural reactions to those moments, but they are not meant to be permanent barriers. They are temporary challenges that ask you one question: are you willing to move forward? Even when you do not feel ready, turning fear into fuel starts with changing the meaning you attach to it. Instead of seeing it as a stop sign, you begin to see it as a green light that tells you there is something here worth pursuing. When your heart starts beating faster, when your mind starts racing with what-if scenarios, you remind yourself that this is what growth feels like. It is not calm, it is not predictable, it is not easy. It is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Doubt works the same way. It tries to convince you that you are not prepared, that you do not have what it takes, that you should wait until you feel more confident. But confidence does not come before action. It comes because of action. You build it step by step, by doing the things you once thought you could not do. Every time you move forward despite doubt, you are proving to yourself that it does not have the authority to decide your limits. There is power in taking action while you are afraid. Not reckless action, but intentional movement in the direction of your goals. You do not wait for fear to disappear, because if you do, you will be waiting forever. You move with it, you carry it, and you let it remind you that you are stepping outside of your comfort zone. That is where transformation happens. Not in the absence of fear, but in the presence of it. You also have to learn how to control your focus. Fear and doubt feed on the unknown, on worst-case scenarios, on imagined failures. If you allow your mind to stay there, it will drain your energy before you even begin. But when you shift your focus to what you can control, your preparation, your effort, your next step, you take back that energy, and direct it towards something productive. You stop feeding the fear and start feeding your progress. Discipline becomes your anchor in this process. Because there will be days when fear feels heavier than your determination, when doubt feels louder than your determination, when doubt feels louder than your belief. On those days, you do not rely on how you feel. You rely on what you have committed to. You show up anyway. You take the step anyway. You remind yourself that growth is not built on perfect conditions. It is built on consistent effort in imperfect moments. There is also a deeper layer to this, a realization that fear often points toward the areas where you have the most potential. The things that scare you the most are usually the things that matter the most. They challenge you because they require you to rise, to expand, to become more than you have been. When you start to see fear as an indicator of opportunity instead of danger, you change your relationship with it completely, and as you continue to move forward, something begins to shift inside you. The fear that once felt overwhelming starts to feel manageable. The doubt that once stopped you starts to lose its grip. Not because they are gone, but because, you have grown stronger. You have built a level of resilience that allows you to face challenges without backing down. You begin to trust yourself more, not because you believe you will never fail, but because you know you can handle whatever comes your way. That kind of confidence is not built in comfort. It is built in the fire of uncertainty, in the moments where you had every reason to quit, but chose to keep going. This is how you turn fear and doubt into fuel. You stop running from them and start using them. You let them remind you that you are pushing your limits, that you are stepping into something bigger, that you are in the process of becoming someone stronger. You take that energy and channel it into action, into focus, into determination. And over time, you realize that the very things you once saw as obstacles have become part of your strength. They have shaped your mindset, sharpened your discipline, and deepened your belief in yourself. They did not stop you, they prepared you, so you keep moving forward, not waiting for the fear to disappear, not waiting for the doubt to go silent, but choosing to rise in spite of them, using every ounce of that energy to build a life that reflects your courage, your growth, and your refusal to stay where you started. Confidence is not something you wake up with one morning like it was handed to you overnight. It is built piece by piece, decision by decision, action by action. Too many people sit around waiting to feel confident before they move, waiting for the right moment, the right feeling, the right moment. The right feeling, the right moment, but that moment does not come the way they expect. Confidence is not the starting point, it is the result. It is what shows up after you have put in the work. After you have faced resistance, after you have taken steps forward when it would have been easier to stay still. You want unshakable confidence. Then you have to understand that it is rooted in what you do daily. Not occasionally, not when you feel motivated, but consistently. The small actions you repeat every day. Those are the bricks that build the foundation. And whether you realize it or not, you are already building something. The question is, are you building strength? Or are you reinforcing doubt every time you keep a promise to yourself? No matter how small, you send a message to your mind that you can be trusted. You say you are going to wake up early, and you do it. That matters. You say you are going to put in the work even when you are tired and you follow through. That matters. These moments may not look impressive from the outside, but inside, they are shaping the way you see yourself. Confidence grows when your actions align with your words, on the other hand. Every time you break those promises, every time you choose comfort over commitment, you weaken that trust. And once trust in yourself starts to fade, doubt begins to take its place. That is why daily action is so important. It is not about perfection, it is about consistency. It is about showing up again and again, even when it is inconvenient, even when it is uncomfortable. You have to embrace the process of doing things before you feel ready. Because readiness is often an illusion. If you wait until everything feels perfect, you will never begin. Confidence is built in the doing, not in the waiting. You take the step, you learn from it, you adjust, and then you take another step. That cycle, repeated over time, creates a level of belief in yourself that cannot be easily shaken. There will be days when you do not feel like showing up. Days when your energy is low, when your mind is filled with doubt, when distractions are pulling you in every direction. Those are the days that test your commitment. Those are the days where confidence is either built, or broken. Because when you push through on those days, when you take action despite how you feel, you prove to yourself that your discipline is stronger than your excuses, and that is where real confidence begins to take shape. Not in moments of ease, but in moments of resistance. When you face something difficult and you do it anyway, you expand your capacity. You begin to see that you are capable of more than you thought. That realization becomes a source of strength that carries into other areas of your life. You also have to be willing to fail, because daily action does not guarantee perfect results. There will be mistakes, setbacks, and moments where things do not go the way you planned. But those experiences are not signs that you should stop. They are part of the process. Confidence is not built by avoiding failure. It is built by learning how to respond to it. When you fall and you get back up, when you adjust and keep moving, you are strengthening something inside you that no success alone can create. Focus plays a role here as well. You cannot build confidence if your attention is scattered, if you are constantly comparing yourself to others, if you are chasing validation instead of growth. You have to lock in on your path, on your progress, on your actions. You measure yourself against who you were yesterday, not against someone else's highlight reel. That is how you stay grounded. That is how you stay consistent. There is also power in repetition. Doing the same positive actions over and over again might feel boring at times, but that repetition is what creates mastery. And mastery builds confidence. When you know you have put in the work, when you know you have practiced, when you know you have prepared, you walk differently. You carry yourself with a level of certainty that comes from experience, not from hope. You start to notice changes, not just in what you do, but in how you think. The voice of doubt that once held you back becomes quieter. The hesitation that once stopped you begins to fade. In its place, there is a growing sense of belief, a steady understanding that you can handle what is in front of you. That is what unshakable confidence looks like. It is not loud, it is not arrogant, it is steady, it is grounded, it is earned. And the truth is, this is a lifelong process. Confidence is not something you achieve once and keep forever without effort. It requires maintenance. It requires continued action, continued discipline to growth. The moment you stop showing up for yourself, you start to lose that edge. But as long as you stay consistent, as long as you keep taking those daily steps, you will continue to build and strengthen that foundation. So you make the decision to act, not once, but every day. You stop waiting for the perfect feeling and start creating results through your actions. You understand that confidence is not something you chase. It is something you build. And you build it through the choices you make, through the work you put in, through the discipline you show when no one is watching. That is how you create something that cannot be easily shaken, something that does not disappear when things get difficult, something that stays with you because you earned it, step by step, day by day, action by action, every day you wake up. Whether you realize it or not, you are making a choice. Not just about what you will do, but about how you will think, how you will think, how you will respond, and who you will become. Life does not wait for you to be ready, and it does not slow down because you feel uncertain. It keeps moving, and in that movement, negativity will always try to find a place in your mind. It shows up in the form of doubt, fear, comparison, and the quiet belief that maybe you are enough. But here is what separates those who rise from those who remain stuck. They make a decision to choose strength, belief, and purpose. Even when negativity feels easier, negativity is comfortable in a strange way. It asks nothing from you, except that you stay where you are. It tells you to play it safe, to expect less, to avoid the risk of failure by never fully stepping into your potential. And if you listen long enough, it will start to feel like truth. But that comfort comes at a cost. It slowly drains your energy, weakens your vision, and keeps you from experiencing what you are truly capable of achieving. Choosing strength means you refuse to let that happen. It means you stand firm in moments when your mind tries to pull you in the opposite direction. Strength is not about never feeling weak. It is about deciding that weakness will not define your actions. You feel the doubt, you feel the pressure, but you move forward anyway. That decision, repeated over time, builds a resilience that cannot be easily broken. Belief is what fuels that strength. Not blind belief, but a deep, grounded understanding that you have the ability to grow, to improve, and to overcome challenges. This belief is not given to you by others. It is built within you. It comes from the moments when you choose to trust yourself, when you choose to keep going despite uncertainty, when you choose to see possibility where others might only see obstacles. And then there is purpose. Purpose gives direction to your strength and your belief. Without it, you are just moving without meaning. But when you connect your actions to something greater, something that matters to you on a deeper level, everything changes. The challenges you face no longer feel like random obstacles. They become part of a journey. The effort you put in no longer feels like a burden. It becomes an investment in something. Meaningful negativity loses its power when you are anchored in purpose. Because when you know why you are doing something, you are less likely to be shaken by temporary feelings or external opinions. You begin to operate from a place of intention instead of reaction. You stop letting every negative thought dictate your direction, and you start making choices based on where you want to go. This does not mean negativity disappears. It will still show up, still try to find its way into your thinking. But the difference now is that you recognize it. You see it for what it is: a distraction, a test, a moment that requires a conscious decision. And in that moment, you choose differently. You choose to focus on what you can control. You choose to act instead of overthinking. You choose to believe instead of doubt. There is discipline in this choice. Because it is not something you make once and forget about. It is something you commit to every single day. You train your mind to shift away from negativity and toward growth. You catch yourself when your thoughts start to drift in the wrong direction, and you bring them back. Not perfectly, not effortlessly, but consistently. The environment around you matters as well. The people you listen to, the content you consume, the conversations you engage in, all of it either supports your growth or feeds your negativity. You have to be intentional about what you allow into your space, because if you surround yourself with doubt, you will start to think in doubt. But if you surround yourself with strength, belief, and purpose, you begin to reflect those qualities in your own life. You also learn to take responsibility for your energy. Instead of waiting for circumstances to improve before you feel better, you decide to bring a different mindset into your circumstances. You understand that your attitude is not determined by what happened to you, but by how you choose to respond. That level of ownership changes everything. It puts you back in control over time. These choices begin to shape your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who is controlled by negativity, but as someone who rises above it. You carry yourself differently. You approach challenges with a different mindset. You start to expect more from yourself, not out of pressure, but out of belief in what you are capable of achieving. There will still be difficult moments, times when negativity feels strong, when your belief is tested, when your purpose feels distant. But those moments do not define you. They are part of the process. What defines you is how you respond, how you choose to think, how you choose to act when it would be easier to give in. And as you continue to make these choices, something powerful begins to take place. You build a life that is not dictated by fear or doubt, but driven by strength, belief, and purpose. You become someone who does not wait for perfect conditions, but creates progress through consistent action and a focused mindset. That is the path forward. Not an easy one, not a quick one, but a meaningful one, where every step you take is guided by the decision to rise above negativity and move with intention, with resilience, and with a clear sense of who you are becoming. And when you reach that point, you begin to understand something that changes everything. This journey was never about becoming someone else. It was about uncovering the strength that was already inside you, waiting for the moment you decided to rise. You stop looking for approval. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions. and you start standing firm in who you are and where you are going. You realize that negativity will always exist, but it no longer has a home in your mind. It may knock, it may try to return, but you do not give it space to stay. Because now you know.